Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are gonna be patting Kabam on the back, kind of, sort of, but still this is definitely meant to be a positive video, and for the most part it absolutely will be, because even though I might be a little bit late saying this, but in my defense there has been a lot going on anywhere and everywhere in the game. Kabam did a great job with Korean challenges this time around. Number one, I think we can all say that Korean challenges themselves was the best thing Kabam released in last half a year to a year for sure. And they did a number of things differently than they regularly do. And if anything, this video is kind of a call to Kabam to create more of stuff like this, because I think the reception of these challenges with the community this time around was largely positive. Everybody was kind of hyped for it, and so we're gonna take a look at what they did right, what they did different than they normally do, and why it had better than normal impact on the game. Because realistically speaking, over the last month and a half, Korean challenges for sure was by far the best thing that was happening in the game, and I actually include 9.4 in it. I think 9.4 was perfectly fine, adequate, and I have no issue with Carina boss. I actually enjoyed it, but I just kind of liked Carina's challenges more, and the fact that it was stretched over 6 weeks is the first thing that we're going to talk about, because then for 6 weeks straight we had something to, number one, plan for, number two, train for, number three, hype it up, number four, you know, kind of like prepare our stashes and all of our that stuff. And it just kind of kept this largely positive community excitement for something. And it really was the best thing happening in MCOC, because currently the game does have quite a lot of issues. Battlegrounds feel absolutely garbage, which is going to be my next video about, and that is not going to be a positive video. But despite all of other issues in the game, I think Korean challenges single-handedly kind of like, you know, upkept the morale to a reasonable degree. And I love that. And I think, again, the weekly release and the fact that for most of these challenges we could prepare and test for and plan for, that was great. It also meant that a lot of people kind of felt more safe going in it. They had like extra things to do in the game if they, you know, didn't want to grind arena or play battlegrounds. And I loved it. Like before Abyss, the week 3 challenge, you know, I played Abyss like for 2 or 3 streams, and I just messed around, you know, checking the matchups and finding the best champions. I learned how to use a few new champions. Still hate Blue Marvel, but you know, he was adequate. But honestly, it's like Blue Marvel is shittified Photon and completely upstaged by Sentry for long form content, but whatever. Those are the takeaways that we take from this, and I think that was kind of cool. So that is the first thing. I think the weekly release schedule for challenges such as this is something that they should definitely keep, because on the flip side, again, let's face it, there are the boneheaded, stubborn, silly people like myself who generally like to blitz all the content immediately as it comes out. And if these challenges had been dropped on like day 1, by day 2 I would be done with them, and then there's nothing left, you know. With this way, you know, you could kind of like feel and sense the community's anticipation more for it. So I love that. Second thing that Kabam did absolutely right here was the large tags. That meant you didn't feel as kind of like discriminating against like having a smaller roster or not having like a very, very specific set of champions, because for most part, both for all of the heroes and villains challenges, there are quite few alternatives, so players did feel a bit more of a freedom to use champions that we want to use, and the champions that we already had ranked up. We didn't feel like we necessarily had to rank up a ton of specific champions. For instance, like I mentioned, you know, you could rank up Sentry for the hero run, or you could just use a bunch of different champions. Like I used the Medusa for a bunch of fights. I used, you know, other random champions that I had, and the same for villain run. You could do the villain run, I don't know, rank up Strife and do it with Strife, or you could use Null for a bunch of fights, for instance. So just having the options, I think, went a very long way into appreciating and taking part in these challenges feel like more free and less controlled. And I have made a video a while back where I talked about how Kabam likes to micromanage fun, where they effectively either via these specific flat out tag requirements or via the nature of the nodes they are putting in the new content. So they're going to release a new fight, and then we're going to have to take in consideration the defender's kit, and then we're going to have to take in consideration like 18 different nodes. And then, you know, there might be even a tag involved, and then effectively we have to use like one or two specific champions, and that never feels fun. That feels forced. And I think Kabam in general has to move away from that and make more content kind of like more open to different champions and be less restrictive. I think Kabam kind of went down too deep in the rabbit hole with the whole, you're gonna play the game how we tell you to play the game, and you're gonna do nothing else, and this is how you fight this, and this is the node that you use, and this is the special that you use, and this is the moment that you can use the special attack, otherwise you're special locked, and nothing you want to do you can do unless we tell you you can do it. That has been the game for quite a while, or that has been the direction that the game has been going, and this didn't feel like that. This felt, again, more free, more open. You can, you know, play how you want, and I love that. That is a very great change, and I wish we would get this version of MCOC much more than use the node, use the champion, play how we tell you to play the game. Stupid Kabam. Okay, so I like that. The second thing is the challenges were not dumb, and this planned point is going to go directly to some of my favorite ex-content creators, I think, at this point in the game. But this is like a diagonally opposite from the CCP Carina challenge, where you had to use the champion in the quest for the fight that I tell you to use it. And guess what? Like, in a lot of these things, those champions fucking suck. Like, still, the, you know, tag... I still hate using Mojo to this day because of that Carina challenge. Because it felt, again, incredibly scripted, and it most certainly felt dumb. And the Zemo challenge I actually didn't mind too much. I guess I could kind of get to the charm of it. But again, they definitely did come with both of the downsides there, where there was like virtually no freedom of choice involved in which champions you want to use, because you quite literally had like very, very small select group of champions, or, you know, individual champions listed. And there were some horrible, horrible fights where you effectively just revived through a bunch of these. And that experience is like completely different, because not only it didn't feel like I am actively choosing my own way of doing things, it also felt like I am forced to do some bullshit, which, you know, I would never want to do. And that is the big difference. So I wouldn't honestly say never want to see that type of Korean challenges again. And I would always welcome the challenge to be as open as possible and not just dumb, where you throw revives down a specific fight. That always was like one of the most infuriating, because it's not like these challenges you could just like waltz in and, you know, do everything itemless. For instance, in the Epoch of Pain one, if you didn't know how to do a specific fight, then I know a lot of people use like 10 revives for a specific fight, or if you didn't know how to fight Ares, that was like another 15 revives or something. So you were rewarded for having the right counter, knowing how to play the fight, but there was always this option that was relatively attainable of, you know, soloing all the fights, or close to soloing all the fights, and just, you know, slipping up on a mistake. So it wasn't like your revive stashes being aggressively assaulted by, like, you know, a Kabam themed burglar in a ski mask. It's like you felt like your stash is relatively safe as long as you do everything right. But imagine if you had to fight Ares and you could only use, I don't know, a fucking Mojo or something. It's like, you know, it would feel a lot worse for every revive that you use, because it wouldn't just feel that I am better at the game. It would feel like, why the hell am I using this champion? So that is the third point I have researched. Just don't make Korean challenges dumb like you have in the past. And these certainly felt more fair. Again, I know people who used... I had some challenge where I didn't use any revives. I had challenge where in this run, one run I used like under 10. In one run, I used maybe slightly above because I used a couple of team revives. But overall, it didn't feel like, you know, there's a vacuum cleaner to my wallet attached with these challenges. So that is good. And the last bit is that the fact that we did get this rehashed new type of content. I think it's one of the things that Kabam's kind of leaning into, and what Carina challenges in itself are leaning into. But I do think these challenges would be significantly less impactful if there was not the Epoch of Pain True Olympian thing going on for us. If it would be like, let's say, you know, the Ordeal, the Abyss, and then some challenge in Necropolis, it wouldn't be as exciting, because throughout the period that we were kind of thinking about all of these Carina challenges, throughout, you know, the time that we were planning for and testing for, there was also this bit of unknown of the Epoch Gauntlet. We kind of knew it's going to be all of the Epoch fights and all that stuff, but we didn't know exactly how it's going to look like, whether there's going to be some additional node, whether there's going to be, you know, some changes made to it, and the fact that we couldn't also like practice for it. So I do think that Kabam has quite a lot of room for, you know, reusing all the content for sure, and it doesn't have to exclusively be from the special piece of content. I do think they could do a very good job, you know, like they are doing with Crucible, where they're taking like the story content bosses. They could, you know, make a new quest from, you know, some of the more notable story content fights just tuned up, and then some of the story content bosses or that Ares itself. I think there's, again, as long as there is a little bit of spark of creativity, rehashing old materials and then, you know, combining them into new content, I think that is kind of in line with Carina challenges. Here, I do, however, want to mention that currently we do have an acute lack of new content creation when it comes to Kabam. And I do think it is quite telling that the best thing that Kabam has done within the last year in this game is effectively a rehash of a rehash. Because remember that Epoch fights originally were their own thing, and then we got the Epoch Gauntlet, the Epoch of Pain, which was effectively rehashing those Epoch fights, combining them into this quest. And then this is like a rehash number 2 of these things. So whilst as long as they do it well, I don't mind Kabam rehashing like old fights at all. I think it is like a very resource saving type of measure, where you don't have to build everything up from scratch and you can pump this content out quicker. So that's fine. I get that. I understand it. And if they do it well, if they do make it different enough, I don't really have an issue with it. I do, however, fail to justify the fact that this is the only kind of like good thing that Kabam has released. And it's been like God knows how long since they did it the last time. So if they are rehashing the new fights, I would hope that we get more content like this more frequently. And the other thing is obviously designing the new content, because we haven't gotten the new version of Necropolis. There hasn't been any like brand new endgame quest for like a year since Wheel of Fate, I believe. I do sincerely hope that Kabam also takes their time to bring in new content, new challenges, not just rehashing things, but, you know, at least if they are rehashing things, you know, let them be as nice as this is. And then, you know, I don't think too many people will have issues with it. The one critical thing, the one kind of like fail here, I think Kabam failed here. I do think Kabam should have added in some extra goodies that were not necessarily advertised. They didn't have to be like game-breaking amount of rewards. But I do think that overall, the only real thing that kind of marred this experience, and I do remember people talking negatively about this entire thing, is this. Kabam should have either slightly increased the rewards budget, or they should have just, from the get-go, put some rewards in here. So I didn't like the way they handled the rewards distribution, but obviously as a player I would have had hoped that there's going to be an additional set of rewards on top of everything else. But here's the trick. If they had reduced the milestone rewards from the very beginning and then they put a chunk of stuff in here, we wouldn't have known, you know, and it would kind of feel nicer, I suppose. So I do think the entire award shindig, it's a bad marketing move. I think it was kind of designed to disappoint people. I kind of saw this coming because they had done this before with one of the quests. I forgot which one. But overall, it always kind of feels bad when Kabam has a chance to, you know, excite people, and they fail at it. And this was one of those things where a lot of people like myself, I didn't expect there to be many rewards, but, you know, I thought it would be a nice touch if there was. A lot of people did expect there to be rewards, and they were like significantly more disappointed with Kabam. So I think that is like the only kind of like bad note that I have here with this set of Korean challenges. So let me know what you guys think, and overall, yeah, good job, Kabam, man, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all been